I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold. I'm just playing. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Happy Thursday. Welcome into the 12th episode of Jack's Mailbag, the series where I answer your Gamecock athletics questions. Also, happy May the 4th, almost, right? Happy Star Wars week. That's the real truth to this. We celebrate Star Wars during this entire week, and yeah, just having a little fun there with the Mandalorian helmet. Unfortunately, couldn't get Pedro Pascal on the show this week to guest host, but you'll have to settle with me for now. But anyway, like I said, happy Thursday, and yeah, let's get right into our questions. We got a lot of questions this week as South Carolina gets ready to take on Missouri and Columbia, Missouri this weekend, and it should be a good series, but we'll have to see how it goes. First question comes from Hoba Caw Creek Cock, who asks, who do you anticipate leaving, staying on our baseball team based on draft status, playing time, transferring for next season? So this is a really loaded question, and I think it's going to depend greatly on what happens at the end of the year, right? If Mark Kingston stays for another year and doesn't get, fired or resigns or whatever, or nothing like that happens, then I expect a lot of guys to end up returning. I really couldn't ballpark who's going to be returning, but there definitely will be some guys probably leaving due to eligibility and stuff. They do have a few fifth years on the team, like Parker Nolan's on the team. He won't be back next year, I would have to imagine. But then again, some guys probably will be returning. I would definitely expect majority of the pitching staff to return, like Roman Kimball, Eli Jones, Matthew Becker, guys like that. But I do think, presuming South Carolina ends the season the way they want to, and Kingston's back for another year and stuff, then I do expect a good majority of these guys to return. Next question comes from Net Ghosts, who asks, how many conference wins are needed for Carolina to host a regional? So this is another good question. And right now, as it stands, as I'm recording this on Thursday, South Carolina is 30-14 on the year, which is good for a 682 win percentage. They're 11-10 in conference play. And right now, they're playing good baseball, right? They're really highly ranked in terms of RPI. They're 10th in the RPI with the fourth hardest strength of schedule, and they're 6-4 in the last 10 games, and they've been playing really good ball. But obviously, they are in line to host a regional right now as a 10 seed, I believe. But the big thing is they got to get some more wins in conference play to really solidify that case. And if you look back to last year in conference play, South Carolina was 16-13. So that would mean, and they were a 15 seed last year in the NCAA tournament. So I think for them, they need to win at least 5 more games in conference play, which you can very well do. If you go to Missouri and you take 2 or 3 right there, or sweep, that's 3 or 2 wins off the books. And then you get Georgia at home next week. And Georgia's a good team, so that could be tough. But I do expect South Carolina to win that series. And then that's 4 or 5 wins right there, and you've already got it. And then all you need to do really is just take one game at Tennessee to end the regular season. But we'll have to see. I think South Carolina is in a very good position right now to host. But they could actually go up too, which is the really good part about it. It's kind of the opposite of last year, where I think they were in line to end up hosting, all the way through a super regional. But because of their late season, I don't want to call it meltdown, but because of what happened, their struggles at the end of the year, they kind of slipped down and were only able to host a regional. Next question comes from Hey Hey. I like that name. That's funny. That's a Moana reference for those of you who don't get it. Why does Nick Pringle not have a transfer rating? So I was doing a little bit of digging on this, and I'm trying to give the best answer I can. But I'm not seeing a rating from On3. However, I am seeing ratings from 24/7 Sports and Rivals, and they both have Pringle as a 4-star. And nationally, he's ranked as the 119th best player, according to 24/7. And then with Rivals, he's the 209th. So I hope that's kind of what the answer you're looking for. I'm not sure why On3 doesn't have him rated, but I will say with Pringle, it seems like a very good move to bring him in. He's, obviously a, really good piece that South Carolina needs, and he's 6'9", 220. He's really going to complement well with Colin Murray-Boyles next season. I do expect that to be one of the better duos in the SEC and probably college basketball next year. Next question comes from Washington Cock, who asks, are you going to accompany Chris Wellbaum when Shu sends him to Las Vegas to open the women's basketball season for Dawn and crew? Someone may have said that Shu was giving him a $1,000 per day per diem. I don't think so. Look, Vegas sounds fun. I've never been to Las Vegas, but yeah, women's basketball. Look, what Dawn Staley and that program are doing, it's phenomenal, unbelievable. It's remarkable what the work that women's basketball in general has really put in, and it's really paying off. But that's Wellbaum's expertise, his forte, and I wish I could say it's mine. It would be super cool to cover that team, but I do not think so. So, but maybe someday. Next question comes from Love My Gamecocks, who asks, can you check and see if Austin Williamson is still on the team? I haven't seen him in the bullpen lately, and he hasn't pitched in like 2 months. Maybe he's entered the portal already. Thanks, Jack. So, yeah, I looked it up, and he really hasn't pitched in a while. He hasn't pitched since February 24th, and this season he's been very shaky on the mound, only going 2 1/3 innings in 3 games pitched. He's got an 11.57 ERA, and he's given up 3 earned runs and a homer. So, honestly, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was one of my picks to, really be a big piece of this bullpen for South Carolina this year, but that just hasn't been the case. Now, why that is, I'm not sure. I believe I've seen him, with the team in the dugout and stuff. So maybe it's an injury, who knows, but I'm not going to assume anything. I think it's just the fact that South Carolina has its guys right now that are pitching well, and you continue to use them. And I guess Williamson just isn't one of those guys. Next question comes from CKW23201, who asks, if we know of a baseball player we should be recruiting, who can we contact? There's a sophomore pitcher from Tusculum High School. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Waynesville, North Carolina, 25 miles west of Asheville. We need to contact. His last name is Amos. He's a sophomore throwing in the low 90s. He has been dominant against some pretty strong competition. Well, if anyone from South Carolina baseball is watching this, there's your inside scoop that South Carolina should be recruiting this pitcher from Waynesville, North Carolina. And look, South Carolina, I think, has done a very good job recruiting high school talent. They're getting some good guys like Peter Martian. I think he's a catcher who really bodes well for what this team needs in the future. And look, it really just depends. I mean, I think the way that college baseball recruiting is going is that you want a good mix of freshmen and transfers, but I think more times than not, you're going to take the experience from the transfers over these, high school prospects. And look, that's not to say that South Carolina doesn't have their prospects coming out. They've got the boys from Somerville potentially coming in next year. So that right there is great from a high school recruiting standpoint. But at the same time, they're going to hit the portal hard and bring in some talented guys. I mean, look at it this way. With South Carolina being the same position it is in right now, without guys like Kennedy Jones, Parker Noland, all these different transfers that they brought in, Roman Kimball, all these guys, I don't know. And I don't know if you get the same type of output from, first year on the scene college freshmen. That's not to say that South Carolina doesn't have good freshmen. I mean, Eddie Copper was pitching beautifully before he got hurt. Jake McCoy got a start on the mound on Wednesday, and he pitched all right. But for the most part this year, he's been throwing about 94, 96 miles an hour, which is a really good sign, and you can develop something like that. That's the thing. The main key with these freshmen is you have to develop them. And it's not going to come overnight, but with these transfers, they can go out there and make an impact right away. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it, and I kind of hope that answers your question a little bit. But I really couldn't tell you specifically what they need, but, I mean, everything's kind of a need when you're recruiting talent. And our final question of the day comes from 9 rushes, 18 yards. Even if Will Tippett is cleared to play, do you see him starting with the way the lineup is performing right now? I don't know, to be honest. I think, look, you're not changing what's working right now. So I don't think he's going to – I don't know if he's coming back this weekend or not against Missouri. It doesn't seem like it. But let's say he returns next weekend against Georgia. If South Carolina is continuing to play the way it is offensively, there's no way you put his bat in the lineup. And while he has been hitting better, while Tippett was hitting better, before he got hurt with the concussion, then I don't know. I would say you throw his bat in the line, but right now you have an infield that looks like Gavin Cassis at third base. He's been hitting better. Talmadge Lee Croy looks really good at shortstop, and his bat could obviously pick it up a little bit, but I think you take what you get from him. He gets on base and does his thing. Second base, you have Parker Nolan. You're not moving him, and then obviously Ethan Petrie at first base. I think more times than not, you're taking offense over defense. And look, South Carolina is making it work right now. Over the last 3 games, they've scored a combined 38 runs, which is quite frankly insane. And so I think you need to keep that going, and you don't mess with something that's working right now. South Carolina has been playing so much better lately, and like I said, you just got to keep it going. And that's really the key to it. So that is going to do it for this week's episode of Jack's Mailbag, a relatively shorter episode, but got a lot of good questions in this week. So really appreciate you guys tuning in and asking all your questions. Again, if you have a question you want answered on next week's episode, be sure to drop it in the comments section below on this YouTube video, or I'll have a thread on the Gamecock Central Insiders Forum where you can drop any of your questions that you want: baseball, football, basketball, Star Wars, literally anything, right? So, yeah, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Again, happy May the 4th to all that celebrate, and South Carolina will be in Como this weekend. I will be there traveling. I'm flying out tomorrow morning to St. Louis and then driving to Como, and I will be there for all 3 games. South Carolina opens their 3-game series with Missouri on Friday night at 7 p.m. on SEC Network Plus. For GamecockCentral.com, I'm Jack Veltri. Have a good one, guys.